Hello and welcome on in, everybody. So if you didn't know, there are massive combat changes coming to New World in the new patch. And in the past PTR update, we got to test the first iteration of these changes. There have been some more changes made with this new PTR patch, and on top of it, there have been some bug fixes to some issues that I actually found on the first PTR, which is a huge deal because the changes that are coming with this patch are going to be absolutely amazing for combat, amazing for PvP. So let's get right into what they fixed in this new PTR and what they've changed. I'm going to start off with the roll and block changes that we kind of had in the past PTR, and they've made some improvements to them in this new iteration. Namely, the light armor roll doesn't slide as far as it used to. I think this is good because honestly, the additional distance from the light armor roll before was going to make it way too strong for kiting compared to the other armor weights. So it seems much more healthy to have the roll distance be similar to that of what it is on the live server. And of course, you're no longer snared at the end of your roll, which is a huge deal for mobility for all armor weights. Now, after doing some pretty extensive testing with my choice weapons on the PTR, I was able to find that there were still some instances where you could snare yourself after doing a roll, especially if you do something like a light attack and then cancel out of it early into a roll. It can sometimes lock a hard snare on your character. This is something that is definitely a bug. It's not intended, and this isn't what Amazon wants for combat in this game. This is actually what they're trying to get away from. So it seems like they're having some issues just locking down the coding with a few abilities when it comes to the roll. If it goes live like this, it wouldn't be terrible, but Amazon, I would love to see you guys patch this one up so that it works consistently across all the different abilities and actions that your character can take. And this leads me next to the light attack roll cancel, which is when you go for a light attack and cancel out of it early with a roll. Minus the little bit of snare at the end of the roll, when you use this combo, it actually executes the way it's supposed to. And something I actually really like about this change compared to the last PTR is it feels like you have a lot more control over the window when you actually want to cancel out of the attack. Perhaps this is just because it wasn't coded properly in the last PTR iteration, but this change is big because it actually feels like you're winding up the attack and you have the control to choose whether to go through with it or not. Now, weapon swap was also a big contentious issue for people on the live server, and in the past PTR, weapon swap was working a bit better than it did on the live server. In this PTR iteration, it feels pretty good. Actually, the way that the swap cues your next ability that you cast, it lets you fire off the skill as fast as possible. That being said, there is still a little bit of a way to get your character to fire out things a little bit quicker, and that's by implementing a block cancel. Now, block canceling is something you can actually use on the live server, but it's only between a few choice abilities where it actually helps your character out. The fact that block canceling can now be applied to things like light and heavy attacks, as well as, for example, transitioning from one skill into a weapon swap and then another skill, the block cancel can help speed up that transition quite a bit. Basically just by canceling or lowering the amount of recovery frames that an ability has at the end of it. Needless to say, after being able to test these changes with them working properly on this PTR iteration, I definitely think there's going to be a huge shift in the meta for melee combat, and in general, I think the skill ceiling for melee combat and even ranged combat with the ability to cancel out of those light and heavy attacks earlier is going to increase. So now let's talk about the Rapier. Rapier has received some massive nerfs on this new PTR update. Riposte has had its cooldown increased to 18 seconds from 12 seconds, Flesh has had its cooldown increased to 20 seconds from 17 seconds, and finally, arguably the biggest punch in the face to Rapier is the increase in cooldown on Evade from 6 seconds to 12 seconds. That's right, they have straight up doubled the cooldown time of Evade. I think with the other combat changes coming, Rapier is getting nerfed way too hard here, especially Evade. Evade is like the bread and butter of how to play a Rapier, and nerfing the cooldown to 12 seconds, I played a lot with it on the PTR. Offensively speaking, you can still use the Rapier pretty effectively. It is still worse than it used to be, but defensively speaking, I mean, Rapier took a massive punch here, a massive punch. So, I know that Rapier is by far the weapon of choice for mobility and defense on the live server. What do you guys think about these changes? Is it too much? Is it not enough? I'd love to hear what you guys think. I personally think that the evade cooldown will not be 12 seconds. I think Amazon's going to go back and maybe change it to 8 or 9 seconds. But yeah, as it sits right now, these hurt Rapier immensely. And some good news for the Great Axe boys out there. Gravity Well has been reverted to its original function, not from the last PTR version that we saw of it. And they also added a 1-second root if you get pulled to the center of the vortex. They increased the pulling tech to more reliably pull foes to the center as well, and they increased the slow to 60%. And the slow duration is also 3 seconds again as well. So yeah, big buff to Gravity Well from the previous PTR version. Actually, I think a little bit of a buff from the current live version of Gravity Well as well. So there you guys go, all the big changes coming to the new PTR combat-wise. I would love to hear what you guys think combat will look like and what you guys think about these changes come the new patch. For me, I just imagine a scenario where you have 2 Rapier players fighting, one Rapier player goes for the heavy attack and then fakes out with the block cancel, baiting out the riposte from the other Rapier player. And that right there just shows how the skill ceiling will increase with this new patch and how control will feel better with the new patch as well, and how some overpowered weapons like the Rapier won't feel so overpowered compared to their other melee counterparts. It is very exciting to see Amazon actually listening to the player base, especially when it comes to things like balance and PvP combat. So I hope that they can keep it up and, of course, deliver a nice bug-free patch when this patch comes out. If you guys enjoyed the show and you want to catch some live gameplay, you can catch me live on Twitch. Give me a follow on Twitter if you guys want to keep up to date with what's going on with me. You can check out my website, pvpnewworld.com. It's got written guides to all of my builds, as well as the one that you see played in this video today. And of course, there is more information on the game there as well. I do the New World Top 5 battles. If you guys have some awesome PvP fights that you want to send in for the top 5, you can send those to Kristofer at pvpnewworld.com. This show is sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. They can give you better ping to your favorite game, and they're free to try for the first month. There's a link down below for you guys. And then last but not least, a massive thank you and shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, I couldn't do this job, so thank you so much for supporting. Thank you everybody just for tuning in and watching today. As always, I hope that you guys enjoyed. Have a great night, everyone, and I'll see you next time.